Hey guys, it's Austin. Welcome to the first episode of my Roblox FilteringEnabled tutorial series. And as you can see, I've got my FE tutorials place here all set up from where we left off last time. And before I begin into remote events and remote functions like I said I would last time, I'm just going to reiterate over FilteringEnabled. FilteringEnabled blocks changes made on the client to the server. So start up a test server. We have that local script that's going to generate a bunch of parts, and since it's a local script, it means it's client-sided. Client-sided stuff does not replicate to the server. Here we have the server window, client window. So it blocks changes made on the client screen to the server screen. Alright, so now that we've done that, I'm going to show you guys remote events and remote functions. Remote event, yeah. So, this is a remote event object. It has no properties, well, no unique properties, just a basic name, parent, class name, etc., etc. But what really matters is the events and methods of it. So, first I'm going to leave this in replicated storage, then I'm going to make a new script in server script service. I'm going to call it network, what am I going to call it? Network. Yeah, that's all I'll call it for now because it sounds cool. And then replicated storage, network, folder. We'll put this in it. Generate parts. So we have a local script, a server script, and a folder that's going to hold our remote events and functions, all our remote stuff. So I'm gonna start by just showing you guys how it's done. You can pay attention. I'm not going to explain any of the code yet. This is just for your observation's sake. So wait, one. We don't want these changes to be made on the client. We want it to be made on the server. So I'm going to define local generate parts equals game service replicated storage wait for child network folder. I'm gonna remove the underscore. Wait for child generate parts. Okay. I'm gonna wait one, copy that to clipboard, generate parts, FireServer in our network folder. We are going to get this variable name again. Generate parts on server event connect function. Okay, I'm going to explain all of this here in a second, just watch it do its magic. Just going to wait a second and generated all these parts again, but this time they were generated on the server, so it automatically replicated to all the clients, just like FilteringEnabled was off. So, F1, I'm going to go to the wiki, search up remote event. Okay, so I'm going to read this. Similar to bindable events, but allow crossing the client server boundary, allows the server script to go cold in the local script and vice versa. Useful when using FilteringEnabled. If the result of the call is needed, use a remote function to return something, otherwise remote event is recommended. It minimizes network traffic and latency. Yes. They don't yield the scripted waiter for a response when they're called. There are some limitations. Save that for later. Okay, so we have the wiki page here for remote events. Now what we need to pay attention to is some of its functions, its methods, and its events. I just used the FireServer method and the onServer event. So like I said, the properties of a remote event don't matter. They're just there. There are no unique properties about them. What matters are its methods and its events. So I'm going to go in here and make a comment. Okay, server to, no, client to server, FireServer, on server event, server to client, fire client, fire all clients on client event. Wait, no. Oh god, I'm so bad at this. Okay, and then that. Dear Lordy. Okay. Nope. Okay, that's good enough, I guess. Method event method, not method, method event okay, that looks a little more organized. So as you guys should know, a method is another name for a function. So a remote event has three primary methods that we're going to use for it: FireServer, FireClient, and FireAllClients. It has two main events we're going to use: onServer event and onClient event. So as you can see, I just used, inside the local script, I used FireServer on generate parts, the remote event generate parts. I used FireServer, and in the local script, and in the server script I used onServer event on the remote event. So remote event dot onServer event onServer event and remote event dot colon FireServer. Now what this means, FireServer, it sends a signal to the server that they need something to happen. And just like any other function, we can pass parameters here. I'll explain that later. But this just sends a signal to the server, to all the server scripts pretty much, that they want something to happen. But we need to listen for that FireServer with the onServer event. That's where the thing's going to happen that we want to do. So FireServer, it triggers the onServer event of a remote event. It's like when you're setting up a touched event to a part. Something touches it, it fires. Except we fire this manually through a script, if that makes sense. And I really hope this is all gonna make sense to you guys. But you know, post in comments if you have if you have questions, as usual. So we connect a function to it as usual, and it does whatever we want it to do. Where could you use this at? Applicable uses. You could use it to generate parts, like I just showed you. You could use it to okay, I will give you more examples when I think of them, but I'm on the spot right now, so I can't. I don't know why I'm so nervous in this video for some reason. So that's how we're going to communicate a local script to a script, a client to the server. But say we wanted to communicate a server script to a local script. We would use one of these two methods depending on what we need it to do. We would use the fire client event and fire all clients event. So, and it would be received with on client event. So it's just like what I explained with FireServer and on server event, except vice versa. You would use fire client in the server script and on client event in the local script. Think of it this way. When you say FireServer, that's triggering a server event, and it's listening in the on server event. When you're using fire client, it's triggering a client event, and we're listening for it with on client event. So the only times I've really used fire client is sending data stored on the server back to a GUI object to display it. So for example, say we stored stats for a game on server storage and we wanted to display how many kills the player has or coins on a text label. We would have an on client event in a local script in that text label, and we would have a server script somewhere to use fire client on the client. But fire clients is especially useful for when we're not sending something to a specific client. For example, in a countdown GUI, you would have a server script with a loop much like this one, and it would be sending data to the local script. It would send how much time there is left, and then the text label would just change text based on that. So I don't know if I want to explain remote functions in this tutorial or not. No, I think that's going to be next video, and I'm not done here. Alright, so I just showed you guys how to use FireServer, but I didn't explain the arguments and parameters. Go back to the wiki page. So we see these words between parentheses. Those are the parameters and arguments for the methods and the events. In the method FireServer, where it says variant arguments, we can use anything we want. We can use any arguments we want in there, but in Fire Client, since it's for a specific client, one of the required parameters is player. So we need to have some sort of player object to send to the client. I mean, it needs to know what client to send it to, whereas in Fire All Clients, it doesn't need to necessarily take any parameters because it's sending it to all clients anyway. Oops. In on-client event, since it already knows what player it is, because it's in a local script, it doesn't have any specific arguments it needs to receive. But in the on-server event, since the server doesn't know what player we're talking about if we just use FireServer, this player parameter is required, except it actually already knows what player it is because we sent it from a local script. Then you can have whatever else you want between there. So alright. So I'm going to change the name of this to execute task. Control H, replace generate parts with execute task. Sorry to change that up on you guys, but I'm going to explain something very useful to you guys. So you know, you could have several remote events for several different tasks like I just showed you guys. Well, I mean one for each specific task you want done, or you could have one remote event if you just wanted to have one, if that's maybe more organized to you. But you can pass parameters for it to execute a task, you know, based on what you want it to do. And I'm just doing this for you guys to explain how the arguments and parameters work for these methods and events. So we're gonna FireServer. We don't need to include player because the onServer event that has player already given. So generate parts. That's we're going to pass a string called generate parts to the event, and we're going to call it request. So if you guys don't know how arguments and parameters work, you need to go back and watch my video on that. I make all my videos assuming you guys have already watched the previous ones and already have that knowledge. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing to do, but yeah, watch my videos anyway. They're super helpful, so I've been told. So now we have this request argument that we received. If request equals generate parts, then end it, then it's going to do this. Else print what to do. Wait 2 seconds. Do test server. Wait a second. It's going to generate the parts. No output. Because the request was to generate parts. But let's try firing it without any parameters. Open up output, go to the client. Wait a second or two, does nothing. It prints what to do. Alright, I'm gonna make a new request kick. Else if request equals kick, then player kick with the message you just got kicked, boy. So now we're checking for another request, and we're going to print player and request just to see what they are, you know. Test server again. Whoa, where'd our character go? We just got kicked. Now my mouse is kinda stuck. That's bad. Blech. Okay. Server output. An error occurred. I wonder why. Player 1 and kick. Those are the arguments that we printed. Clean up. So when I was new to FilteringEnabled, I used onServer event and I didn't include the player argument because, you know, I didn't really know that it was necessary to have, even if we don't use it. I'm just gonna comment these out just because we don't need them. Let's request to generate parts again. I am not gonna comment that out. I'm just gonna comment this bit out, the player portion. Okay, so we can still see what the request is. So if the request is generate parts, it's gonna generate all those parts again. Let's see what happens. Output again, wait for the client. Nothing happened. Oops. A server printed what to do and printed player 1 right above that. So it didn't generate those parts because the request was not generate parts. It printed what to do. The request was actually player, because even though we have the parameter generate parts here and this request argument here, this is actually still the player, because we go back on this page, on server event, no matter what, the first argument is always going to be player, and then whatever comes next is whatever you passed in the parameters. Okay, sorry the phone rang. So that's how you transfer client to server. This video is already getting long enough, and I'm sure you guys probably hate videos, or hate long videos, and I applaud you if you've gotten this far. So I'm going to show you quickly how to use Fire Client and Fire All Clients. Screen GUI, text label. Just make that text scaled real quick. Local script, execute task. No, I'm gonna make a new one. Execute task.on client event connect function. Gonna go back to our network script. We're just gonna wait one execute task FireServer player 1 15. Say we have a value called kills and its value's 15. So not FireServer, Fire Client. So the first parameter is player 1, that is not optional, and then everything else is whatever we want it to be. So we need to receive kills. Script.parent.text equals kills. Let's try this. Oops. Unable to cast value to object. Network server line 29. Oh, yeah, it can't be a string of a player's name. Duh, it has to be a player object. Game.players, wait for child, player 1. Yeah, usually that'll be a lot easier to do, I guess, I don't know. Yeah, so now our text label says 15 kills. And now fire all clients. Wait one for, a good example of this is a countdown timer. 31, or 30, 0, -1. Do execute task fire all clients I is going to be that number. Task equals time left time left, because we can name this anything we wanted to because it's an argument. 2 players start to do And what didn't work? Oh, duh. I equals I. I minus 1. I guess that should work. Output. Yeah, nope. What am I doing wrong? Print I. Yep, filtering enabled bug testing, guys. Oh, duh. I did not add a weight. That took a lot longer than it should have. So firewall clients, remember that updates on everyone else's screen. Every client, and as you can see, it's that countdown GUI is updating at the same time. So again, sorry this video took so long. I know you guys probably don't like long videos, but it's worth it to learn FilteringEnabled, trust me. And it's pretty fun if you really get into it. So if you guys have any questions, if you're unclear on anything, just post in the comments. I will definitely answer them to the best of my ability. Next video is going to be on remote functions, and that's if you want to return something from the server to the client or vice versa. So I will see you guys next time.